Good morning. How are you? It's Louisa Munson from the Barefoot Broadcast, coming to you on a Monday morning from sunny-ish Portugal. And I'm wondering where you're listening in from. So I can see there are quite a few people watching already, and that's great. Welcome. Welcome back. Today we're joined by Rosanna Rays and also Robert Jardine, who came on a couple of weeks ago, in fact, and we're going to be talking about what is the best possible outcome for humanity, given the kind of chaos we've all been through over the last, well, you could say 3 years, you could say 5 years, you could say the last decade, or, for those of you that have been like looking into this for a while, you might even say for your whole lifetime. So, yeah, it could be quite a big subject. Who knows where we'll go with it? And I don't even know if there is a real answer. But, the whole purpose of this is for us to just have a chat. I've been spending quite a lot of time with different people. And one of the things that occurs to me is there's a lot of division in the way that people feel and think. And at some times, like when I hear people talking, I get this real sense that there is an absolute core wound, that people are feeling really, really deeply wounded inside. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I want to do these and have these great conversations with these amazing people. So let us know who you are, where you're watching in from, how you're feeling today. I'll be honest, I'm actually feeling a bit exhausted. It's quite an exhausting weekend. And, you like to think you're going to start your new week sort of like raring to go. In fact, I feel like I might have to go back to bed straight after this, but let's see, maybe by the end of this, I'll be feeling really uplifted. And that's my main goal. But anyway, let's bring on Rosanna and Robert now. And let's say good morning. Okay, so I've got you both on top. Because it just feels right. Oh, well, we've got Vivian S listening in. She's saying, I'm tired too. Well, bless you. Thanks for joining us anyway. Robert, how are you doing? And how are you doing, Rosanna?
Ladies first.
Oh, thank you very much. You like a gallant fellow. Yeah, I've had a very, very intense weekend. It's
Wow.
Not been time off at all. I've had 3 days with a very intensive work with a client, which is fabulous, but it has left me a little bit depleted. So after today, I'm not doing much. I do have a group call tonight, but other than that, I think I will be a bit like gathering myself. But still really excited to be here.
Bless you.
I loved the last one. So, a bit daunted by the question, which doesn't help that I'm tired behind all of that. But we'll see how we go.
How are you feeling, Robert?
I feel good. You must be exhausted, Rosanna, because I'm a therapist too, eh? And it's like that is hardcore what you've been through there. So you must be totally drained.
Yeah, it was 3 days at a hotel. That's how intense it was, because they were far, so we had to meet, in between. So it was intense, but very enjoyable, very rewarding, and I think sometimes that kind of G's up your energy as well. So
totally.
And up here in the north of Scotland, we're good. I'm continuing to build my shed, which will be a place of a focal point, I think, for me to can do it, to work from, and to meet people from, and to bring people together in. So a shed's it's not really it is a shed, but it's 5 meters by 10 meters, so it's a nice big with nice windows, and it's all wood, and I cut the wood all myself, so it's all good. So it's going to be great, and it's going to be a great place for people to meet up and to keep the energy of life and the good energies going. So that's what I've been doing.
I can't wait to see photos.
So it's going to be really good. Yeah, it's looking great.
Yeah, I can imagine it already.
So we've got good morning, Portugal. That's my husband joining us, saying the age of chivalry is not dead.
Thank the Lord.
Maybe because we're all shriveled a little bit, like a little bit worn out. But hey, I love the idea of your shed. And I think we all need a bit of a shed. I could do with the respite shed today. But anyway, respite aside. So we got this big kind of question. What is the best possible outcome for humanity? What's your first thoughts on this question?
I'll let you go first, Robert.
I think,
well,
to be fair, I think it originated from you, Robert.
Yeah, I did think of that question. I don't know where it came out of, and I've deliberately not thought about it since I suggested it, because I thought I just want to see what actually comes out of my head, well, my mouth, and I just think there is an abundance of opportunity for humanity to learn about itself, because that's what I think. At the end of the day, we've got to learn about ourselves, and all of us, not just individually, but we've got to learn, like, us as a group, and how the group's formed and who's up to what, and if you don't know yourself, you don't really know much. You know, you don't know what you are within the bigger picture, and I think we've been dumbed down to think that we're nothing and we're just insignificant. We're 1 in 7.5 billion or so, whatever the number is, but we're not. We're all amazing, and we're all powerful. And this process we're going through just now is certainly making me realize that. I mean, it's made me look into things that I would never have dreamed I would have been interested in 3 or 4 years ago. And then all of a sudden I'm discovering, about legal and lawful and about the rights and wrongs of life. And I think that's going to be the same for a lot of people. I hope so anyway. And it's the opportunities there for all of us, I reckon. Don't you think so?
Yes, I totally agree. I think as you were speaking there, what was really resonating for me was my hope that I realized wasn't really conscious. But it's that sense of I hope that people will gain or be activated to have a sense of full autonomy in their sense of who they are as their own being, or as a divine being, or however they see themselves, but to kind of be inspired to really take ownership of that and use critical thinking to question everything.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, I think so. We've got to get out of the dream. People have got to realize that what we're being told isn't true, and therefore you've got to sort of think for yourself. Just that one step of, okay, I'm going to think this through for myself. I'm going to look at options and look at both arguments here. That opens up. That's the key to us. This whole thing resolving for everyone's greater good is for people to think for themselves. That's all.
I'm loving the cut of both of your jibs. So just to kind of paraphrase what I'm listening into right now, like your opening gambit, Rob, was like that people learn about themselves and get the sense that they really know who they truly are. So I've got a question that I'd like to just hang there while I also sort of paraphrase what I heard from Rosanna. But that sounds to me like there's the assumption that people don't know themselves. Like we grow up in our homes, in our families, we go to school, we leave school and we start work, and we don't know who we are, which, by the way, I tend to think is true. Just putting it out there. And then Rosanna, what I'm hearing from you is like, I hope that people almost like relinquish their autonomy and take ownership of being a divine being. And you both really mirrored like the idea of critical thinking, being able to think for yourself, which in recent times has sounded a bit like heresy, to a lot of people. They've been like, oh, how dare you talk about critical thinking? And we've got this coming up in the chat room. Read the question. If there's only now, this has to be the best outcome. That's a cheeky question. We'll come back to that, I think, right at the end. Vivian S is saying, when we take action in the present, it can redeem the past and change our future. Paul Coelho, the time is now. Oh, we've got a lot of nowisms coming up. We've got Robin Johnson. Do you know Robin, you guys? Because Robin's found us.
I know Robin. Yes.
Oh, hello, Robin.
Hello, Robin. Thanks for tuning in.
Hi, Robin. Hi.
Yeah, thanks for finding us. That's amazing. Morning.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, very nice to meet you, to have you on the show. Too many people are conditioned by society to just accept what they're told and don't think for themselves. It's quite scary. I would agree with that.
That's true. Yeah.
So back to you, Rob, then. learning about ourselves, do you think that like, where do you think it goes wrong? That like what do we know about ourselves?
I think it goes wrong from I think our parents came through a system which made them have expectations and understandings of life which didn't question things so much. So we're lucky. Us just now in this time are lucky, because all of a sudden, you know, quite a large proportion of us, of people, are starting to really question things for the first time in perhaps many generations. You know, because it was just always, well, you get up, you go to school, you start school. When I was young, it was 4, but now it's flipping probably 1.5 or something. You know, they're just trying to get their hands on the young life to get them into the system of thinking as quick as they can, you know, and keep it going. But all of a sudden, we've got this great reset, which it kind of could be. We could actually press what is it, Control-Alt-Delete, right, and start again. You know, and say, okay, well, that wasn't very good. How can we do it better? And it's you know, there's so much interest in all aspects of life, you know, social, spiritual, you know, the power struggle and everything. All these, we're all having fevered conversations and switching off our mobile phones in case they're listening to us and stuff, because we're all becoming a bit more aware, you know. And I just think there's such great opportunity here. We just got to get the momentum going. It's like we've got to get you know, like a snowball. You start a snowball rolling down a hill, and it just starts off small, but eventually it turns into a great big avalanche. And that's what I think we have if there's ever been a time in the recent history of humanity, it's now. It's coming. We're going into it now, and everyone. I think it's the duty of everyone who knows something to get it out there, whatever it is, and it might not be entirely true, but at least the doing of getting things out there is right. Whether it's what you're getting out is right or not, you know, come on, get off your backside and get it out. You know, get your message out. Get your opinion out, because your opinion is just as right as any opinion that comes out of the government or the WHO or anywhere. Who are they? You know, who are they?
That what you just shared
what I mean?
Rosanna, I'm just going to mute you because I think I'm getting a bit of feedback, and I'll unmute you in a sec. Sorry about that. Rob, what you just said there, just like really, oh no, actually it's not coming from Rosanna. I'm getting feedback from all over the places. What I just heard there is, I think, like partly based on the assumption that most people actually feel like there isn't anything going on. And there are quite a few growing, like there's a growing collective now of people who are starting to realize that maybe what they've known about life isn't proving to be true, and that there are some people starting to wake up and question.
Yeah, but people have been trained to believe. You know, belief has been used to control society I mean, I'm no historian, right? But I do know that, you know, like the Bible, and there was Jesus, and he was he sounds like a great guy, what he was doing, but then that's been taken over by people, and they realize, you know, belief, you've got to control belief. So the religion was used up until quite recently, right? Because that's what we believe. And now with the new religion is science. And you think, oh, so now they're using this religion. They've taken pure science, which is a good thing, and they've used it formed it into a type of belief. And then they can use this belief. So we believe in, that's the church. It's the church of science now that we believe in. But when anybody questions that, it's heresy. It's you know, you're doomed if you question what the scientists tell you. And that's no different than it was, you know, 1,000 years ago in the church. You know, we haven't moved on one bit. And but you know, we've got at the moment, at least, we've got communication, we've got this debate going. It's just that it's ripe for a change, I think. And I just feel it's our duty to be part of that change, just to do our little bit. And you know, that to me is what we can do just now. And I think it's a great opportunity, very worrying times, if you start going down the worry rabbit hole. But if you go down the potential rabbit hole, there's a lot out there. And there's like us three people are speaking. We wouldn't have been doing this 5 years ago, but all of a sudden there's an audience and we're interested and we're prepared to say our stuff.
Yeah. And in fact, Carl's saying, well done, Rob. Science is definitely a new religion. And guess what? What replaced the blood of Christ and the nice wafers? Yeah, it has kind of replaced that, hasn't it? As has Hollywood. The education system is also a religion that a lot of people believe in, as is hospitals, as in legal institutions, as in the European Union and all these other big unions. It's like there are so many different structures around us and people are just believing in them. And I agree. I think, isn't it time to just at least ask the question, are these good for us?
Well, you can say people are believing in them, but you can also say that there are some very, very clever people, ingenious people who are using them to control us. You know, you've got to give the people that's in charge of what's happening just now, you've got to take your hat off to them. They're doing an excellent job. They're using because they had the finger on every resource that they want, and they can control every means that we interact with life. So then through the computers, the televisions, the newspapers, and whatever else, you know, they're doing a fabulous job at it. And it's up to us to sort of break out of the bubble and burst it and see the real life outside the bubble and then say, that's not good. You know, we deserve better than that. I reckon.
I like to play a game. I agree with you. I like to play a game called Taking Over the World. Every now and again, when I talk to somebody who absolutely believes everything, if they're open to, you know, a little bit of mild prodding, I say, okay, imagine you were going to take over the world right now. What might you do to be able to control everyone or to become the richest person on the planet? Because actually, when you think about what lengths you might go to ensure that everything is under your control and nothing is up for chance, is actually everything that's happened already and is already on way. Like you surely you'd make people sick, wouldn't you, if you could?
Yeah.
Whilst helping them think that they're not, so that they don't have the energy, but you do. You would also make people reliant on things and all sorts of things. Rosanna, you sat there and I can see you nodding, and I'm sure you got lots to share with us, lots of ideas and thoughts.
Well, everything. My mind was going to be ADD. My mind was going off in all different directions while Rob was talking. But I think the main thing that came out of it for me, which is not necessarily answering what you said, but just like this light bulb that keeps flashing, is consent.
Oh, right? That's a good thought.
You know, it seems like that's what's being taken away from us and we're being railroaded. And I just feel it's almost like there's this, it's not even covert, it's overt narcissistic abuse on a grand global scale, that people are being gaslit and confused and, you know, kind of like, we're going to do this to the nth degree, and threatening things that's going to make, you know, the masses really frightened, and sort of spin out of control with their mindset and into depression and all sorts of things. And then they retract it, you know, and so it's like, oh, it's okay, we're not going to do the worst case scenario. It's still bad, but everybody's like, oh, that's all right then. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like in their heads, they've already experienced the worst.
Yeah,
and I think that's
a clever process.
It is, isn't it?
The cleverest thing of this agenda that's going on, mentioning what happened.
Can I ask you to share a couple of examples of where you've seen people do that? Because obviously Rob and I are like, oh yeah, yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people listening are going, oh yeah, we've seen that. But if somebody hasn't seen that, they might be thinking, Rosanna, you're off your head. Like, when have we ever been pushed into this abyss only to, you know, like, because people that are being gaslit often don't realize they're being gaslit.
I would recommend, if people aren't aware of it, that they start looking at, you know, political footage and social media interviews with very well-known politicians. You know, there's Rishi Sunak and there's, you know, Klaus Schwab, and they're always saying, well, not so much Klaus Schwab. He generally says this is where we're going and this is what we're going to do. But, there are others who, are kind of moving along with this Agenda 2030. And, they're presenting, Rishi Sunak definitely comes to mind, that it's presenting, we're going to do this, but then, oh no, it's not so bad. We're going to retract that. We're going to do half. But, I suggest that people don't take what I'm saying as gospel. They go out and they do their research, because when you do it firsthand, then you're taking ownership. I'm not here to spoon feed people. I want to wake people up to go on their own journey. I don't want them to sit there and believe me because I'm saying this incident and that incident, because that will mean nothing. That will just activate, the argumentative program that gets activated because people have been brainwashed, right? Because the first response will be and there's always a response, because there's always another side of an argument. And I don't want to get involved with that. You can't dispute when you go and you do your own research and then you see the facts laid out in front of you, like we all did. I do kind of feel a bit sorry for people nowadays, because I don't know about you guys, but I haven't sort of checked up on my research recently. When we first started, when it all hit and things started going wrong, I'm sure you guys did too. I just started delving into things, because things were like, oh, red flag, red flag, red flag. And there was a lot available to see at the time. For instance, when we came into the first, or just before the first lockdown, on social media, all the channels were going, Boris Johnson was saying, this is a pandemic, right? What is the definition of a pandemic? An infectious disease, right? And then I went on the government's own website, and it said that it is not a highly infectious disease. I was like, mind blown.
And it was only 3 years prior to the pandemic, or it might not be 3 or 4 years prior to it, that they changed the definition of epidemic to pandemic. Because epidemic it was like, that's getting old hat now. Another epidemic. Oh, so we'll have a pandemic. Everything's been building up to the mind control and the NLP that's coming through, and you see like all those news clips, right, from all over the world. I've seen it was obviously on the internet, but it was genuine, because you could see that people was filming them on their televisions, and everybody was reading the exact same script, word for word, all over the world, all at the same time. Like,
like they've been in the same room.
If you see that and don't think, well, hold on a minute, there's something wicked going on here, then you're lost. It's like, you've got a duty to pick up on that.
I almost think it's worth, people watching films like The Truman Show, because it does feel like, if you've seen The Truman Show, it does feel like you're in it when you start to look at things and question things for the first time. Because you're right, Rosanna, you do get backlash, don't you, when you start saying, oh, I just had this weird thought. If it's contra to what everyone else is believing, you'll get a wicked bitch slap back, won't you?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
But it's not that I'm afraid of that. I've just worked out that actually people get so stuck in the I want to argue. Right? Maybe that's ego. That actually doesn't do them any favors for me to sit here and spout what I believe either.
Absolutely.
I just want people to take ownership of their own minds, their own bodies, their own thoughts, critical think, and actually realize they have to give their consent. Like right from the beginning, people were like, are you going to get that? And I was like, they'll be holding me down, kicking and screaming. They'll have to imprison me. No, big fat no. And I had someone ask me again recently, and I was like, why would I start now? We've had so much evidence come out that has been squashed as well about how bad it is. How people. I watched a documentary a while back. I wish I could remember what it's called now, but it was a lot of coroners were speaking up about what they were finding when they were doing postmortems. Somebody high up within the Ministry of Defence was talking about the first trials that were done on soldiers and how she recommended that it be retracted and not be used. And I was like, it's all being squashed. People aren't seeing it. That should make people question.
Yeah, I mean, when I was talking to family members about their own beliefs about engaging in the what that you're just mentioning there, I asked, have you had informed consent? And they said, what is that? And I said, well, it's the information about testing, what's really going on with it, what's it consist of. And they were like, oh, yeah. And I said, so what were you told? Were you asked if you consented? Were you given a choice? Did you have to sign anything? Nope. And I was like, but that's illegal. And, I was like, give me the name of your doctor. I am going to write a letter. I am going to complain. And they were like, no, you can't do that. It's like people have no idea that they have a consent. I mean, years and years ago, when I was pregnant with my second child, I remember going to the local surgery, and they had this like posh like checking in system where you like typed in your phone number into a computer, and then it told you what time your appointment was and everything, and everyone had to log in. And I remember trying to log in, and it kept getting flagged because they needed to speak to me, and they were saying, you haven't had this particular jab in your pregnancy. And I said, well, it's because I haven't consented to it. Oh, but you must have it. Can you give me some information about it, please? No, you just must have it. And I said, well, I'm not going to be doing that. And they said, well, we can't have you registered here. You're going to have to, what was the word? It's going to be a longer check-in process if ever you want medical help, and like veiled threats back then. And the funny thing is, I actually did do some research, and I looked on the NHS website for the testing of said vaccine. And at the time, they said it had been tested fully in America, and that the UK had used the American testing laws and decided that what America had decided was enough. So I looked up the testing regulations in America, and it hadn't been tested on pregnant women. It had been tested on pregnant rabbits. And the testing had gone 30 days after the babies had been born. It hadn't gone any further than that. And so when I said to my GP, well, I've done this research and I've done that research, and I don't think that's sufficient to agree to something, they made an example of me. And it's so funny you talk about that, and for a lot of people they just think that's really normal, and they said, "Oh, why are you being so difficult?" I think consent, I think you need information. So this has been going on pre the time that most people are waking up. It's been going on for years, possibly all our life. I think all of our lives.
I think I agree so much. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but what was coming to mind was all the thalidomide victims.
Yeah.
They coerced women, pregnant women were coerced to think that it was a great thing.
Yeah.
And, their babies were born without limbs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. And yet we still, when was that? The 40s, the 50s? We still have this mentality that we need to believe and have faith in the medical community. And I'm not saying they're all bad, of course not. And,
no, definitely not.
I'm a holistic practitioner, and I say to people,
I think you've got to draw. I think you've got to discern between whether they're all bad or whether they're all good is one question, or whether the medical industry is good or bad. They're different questions. You might have a really nice doctor, really nice guy, loves you to bits, do anything to save you, and half the stuff he puts inside is killing you, right? So, do you know what I mean? So you got to separate that.
Yeah.
And this is the process of thinking for yourself and starting to ask critical questions.
Yeah.
Right. So then, if anybody should wish to ask a critical question like, are diseases infectious? And if you actually look into that critically, you'll find that they're not. Diseases, you do not catch a disease. One person does not transmit a disease with a cough or a sneeze or whatever, and the next person receive it and get ill. That's diseases. No disease has been proven to be transmitted like that. Now, yes, there have been times when there's been epidemics of disease, but still the method of transmission of that disease is not identified until the work of Dr. Hammer came along, which actually shows that the disease can be bloody well photographed in the brain with a CT scan. So if you've got polio, right? Oh my God, we've got to get immunized for polio. Why? If you actually think, why? Where is the disease, right? Oh, well, we can't find the virus or whatever they're saying it is. But if you look at Hammer's work, and you will see that the brain will always show a lesion in the exact place where the muscle or the function has been affected. And it's been caused by the trauma. The trauma caused the brain or the psyche to respond, and the body then followed what the brain told it to do. The brain is reacting to that trauma. So it's almost as if your disease is connected to that life trauma, right? Now, this has been proven. Anybody who studies Hammer's work, it's just like they go through a shock period of, oh my God, this can't be true. Is this true? When you just learn it and you look at it, you realize that disease is not transmitted from person to person. Any disease, I'm talking from syphilis to Crohn's disease to the flu to COVID, they do not get transmitted. That's not how it's happened. So therefore, why do you need to get an injection? And another thing to back that up is that we do not have an immune system. We're not fighting anything. We're living in nature. Nature's living in us. There are more cells, there are more microbes in us than cells of our own body, or it's equivalent. There's billions, trillions of microbes inside of us. There's no fight going on, right? And it's only an assumption that you say, oh, well, he's got a flu, he's got a fever, so something must have caused that. No, if you look at Hammer's work, it's all documented that it's caused by a process because you have perceived something which has stressed you in some way.
Yeah.
And part of that process is high temperature fever, or spots on the skin if it's separation type conflict. And they call that measles. So then they're sticking injections into you to stop measles. But has anyone ever found a measle? I've never seen a measle.
Sorry.
So the thing is critical thinking, guys and girls. Look, the information is there. You have to go looking for it. And the reason you have to go looking for it is because what we've got on offer is making eye-watering amounts of money for the people that are in control of it, right?
Yes,
it's
follow the money,
staggering.
right?
It's absolutely staggering. And not only is it making money, it's controlling humanity. I mean, how many of us wore these silly flipping face fidgets for 6 months a couple of years ago? Do you know what I mean? We all got forced into it because we're all, I knew full well, I felt huge social pressure. I thought, oh my God, what's going to happen if I don't wear this when I go to the co-op? Oh my Lord, the police going to lock me up, right? But now I'm a bit stronger because we've had an opportunity to listen to stuff on the internet, to look into law, to look into common law, to look into legalities, to look into statutes. And you think, hold on a minute. You know, it's an illusion that we've been convincing ourselves into that we need to wake up from. And that's what I think can happen in humanity. That's why I think we're at a cusp. We could actually learn. One of the things to learn would be legal and lawful and what we are as living people, living men and women. And another thing to learn is Hammer's work, as in, well, how does the body function? How we are part of nature. And if we learn that, we can learn how to live within this life. Yeah. Right? We could learn to live appropriately for what we are, like other animals do. You know,
which goes back to your original. Sorry to interrupt you. That goes back to your very first statement. We need to learn about ourselves.
Yeah, totally. So
we know about ourselves and how we're made and how we function. What you've learned later on, well, not later on, but what you've learned somewhere along the way is that, whoa, that's actually not how we work. And I'm so grateful to you for switching me on to Dr. Hammer, because just before I came across Dr. Hammer's work, which I'm not an expert on like you are, but just before that, I got banned from Facebook for a short while for sharing something from Dr. Thomas Cowan, who was quoting the, what's it called? The Invisible Rainbow. If you've read that book, that's a pretty good book, talking about different so-called epidemics that have like swept the world and stuff. But Dr. Cowan, I shared this bit of video where he I think it must have been based on some of Dr. Hammer's work, but they'd taken some snot sample from a horse who appeared to have some kind of cold that, like, a normal vet or a medic would have said, oh, look, they've got a cold, they've got flu or something. You know, this horse was showing like a viral type thing from what we all think a virus is. And so they took this snot and they cultured it into hay, put it in a hay bag, in one of those nose bags, and gave it to every other horse to infect each horse, and not a single one of them got it. And then this experiment was replicated over and over and over again. And of course, you know, I shared that, got banned. Then I learned from Rob about Dr. Hammer's work, and I was like, shit, it makes complete sense. And
it does. It makes pure. His work makes pure, complete biological sense.
Yeah.
You know, when you really get into it, you realize that nature is we're part of nature, and I believe in what God is for me, and life, and I think nature wants to keep life alive.
Yeah.
Nature doesn't want to kill life. And people say, oh yeah, but it's the survival of the fittest and all that. Well, maybe on some small degree, but I think it's an interdependence of all species. And Hammer's work has proven that. And just now is a time to start questioning. It's a time to start questioning. Everyone needs to start questioning what we have been told is true. Yeah. And these truths that we've been told, like global warming and the infectious diseases, are being used to dismantle this great life we've been living. Not too bad. Could be a load better, but it's been not too bad. But what they've got in plan seems to be an awful lot worse. And they're using our religious belief in things that, if you just put a little bit of critical thinking into them, they're a lot of rubbish, right?
That and
it's just a dream.
Right?
Hey,
that and fear mongering.
Completely so. Completely so. Yeah.
Trying to convince people that they can live in 15-minute cities and never go anywhere. Yeah. You know.
But not only. I want to just put something else which is really important, right? Isolation. You know, not going to see your aged mum or dad, right? Because in case, you know, you transmit something, right? Now, when you understand from Dr. Hammer's work that separation conflicts affect the neocortex of the brain, they can be seen so in a CT scan, and they cause dementia, for example. Separation causes dementia. How about that? That's now been proven. Does the medical industry jump on that and say, oh, we now know the cure? No, they don't. They just tried to shoot Dr. Hammer and put him in prison because he was going to be stopping a big money train that way. So, you know, so some of the stuff that we had to do as a society was actually very bad for our healths. For example, isolating. We are just one step above apes. We're supposed to huddle together and pat each other on the back and cry together and fight, you know, and fight together and be together, right? Not all separate ourselves in fear, get frightened of contact with exactly what we need to live healthily, which is, you know, good contact. Do you know, so can you see how somebody very clever is using knowledge which could save humanity, but they're using it in a bad way to control humanity so they can cripple it?
Yeah. Which, if we were playing that game, how to become the ruler of the planet and the richest person on the planet,
you'd have to have everybody believing you.
What you would do, you would get everyone believing you, everyone in fear, no one connecting, because if they connect, they might work out, they might connect some dots together.
They might have conversations like us.
Yes. Speaking of conversations, let's bring in some other things. Thank you for that, Rob. I really appreciate that. So we've got a lot of people commenting. So I think Carl was saying science is definitely the new religion. Viv is saying the entire premise of science is questioning. Da, da, da. She's so right, and yet so few people do. They say, oh yes, I believe in science. Great, tell me about science. Well, it's just what I find out from the CDC. Robin Johnson is saying science is continually evolving, so it's only right that everything is questioned. Yes. And Carl is saying the red wine now goes straight in your veins, and the wafers or pills get put on the tongue. Great little analogy there. Viv is saying, do your own research, question everything. Owen, hey, Owen. He's saying, I've been questioning the narrative since 9/11. Things are so obvious to see. However, I've given up saying anything. I'll leave them to their ignorance.
I think we all go through that time and again. It can get exhausting.
Yeah. It's interesting that Owen brings up 9/11 because I remember I was working at JP Morgan Chase during the 9/11. Do I want to call it an attack? I guess it was a huge attack, but I don't think it was an attack in the way that we all were led to believe. I remember watching it on a big screen. All of a sudden, everyone from all the different offices at JP Morgan Chase ran into like the restaurant, and we were all watching on this big screen. And like, we were all working with people that were connected to people actually in the towers. So it felt like a massive attack on us. But the really weird thing, which I didn't really question until months after, was just the really strange timing of it. Because that summer, we used to have these contingency days where we would plan what would happen in an emergency. And I always used to volunteer for it because I'd get double time and work over the weekend. So I was always like, yeah, sign me up. And so, like, just a few months before this 9/11 thing happened, we went to work and we were given this scenario. We had like proper actors coming in to tell us about it. But we learned that there was this off-site office that a lot of insurance companies and banks had all paid for together, so that if ever one of their buildings was bombed, and this was the example I was given, if a plane went into the building, that we would all just be carried off to this kind of remote area. And so on the day, we had to pretend that we were all working. We're all given trades to put into the system. Then there was this big announcement that a plane had crashed into our office. All the systems were down. We were whisked into a coach, taken off site to this other place where we had to log into this new mirrored mainframe to see if our original trades had gone through. Then we had to make a difference. And then we were all taken back, told, yeah, we've got the all clear. And then we went back to our original building to see if everything had worked in between these two sets of offices. And I later found out that all the other companies had invested in this shared facility, had done similar tests to make sure it worked with their businesses. But the really funny thing was, at the time, we were also fielding calls from the general public and news agencies, which were all paid actors who were like obviously being paid a lot to kind of hassle us and to see if we were going to break and what would happen. It was this huge test, massive test, a few months before it took place. And I didn't question it. And it was about 8 years later, when I was in Bali, that all of a sudden someone said, hey, did you ever think about this? And did you ever look at the trading that happened immediately before 9/11? And all of a sudden I started thinking, oh my God.
Yeah. You've been a guinea pig.
Yeah.
You've been a guinea pig. Yeah.
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of speaks to me about the kind of high level program anesthetizing that's going on amongst people in general. If that can happen to someone like you who was on the inside, and it took you how many years for you to start questioning?
Yeah, about 8. I mean, by then I'd left the company, which also helped. And I did start to question a lot of things about working there. When I worked, like, saw how they make money from just there's so many different ways that these big businesses make money out of thin air. And that immediately made me think, oh, I really don't want to work for these people. But just think how many, and like, isn't it funny that on 9/11, allegedly there was other tests going on at the same time, where there was a simulated attack, and that's why nobody was there to do anything. And it's the same with 7/7 in London. 7th of July, there was that bomb that went off on a bus, and people weren't called to do anything straight away because there was allegedly another test scenario going on at the same time.
Yeah, but can I just say,
Yeah.
everything that you're saying is the result of critical thinking.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. This is a time in humanity's journey that there's so much opportunity for critical questioning and thinking. It's now. You know, this is what perhaps, I mean, and perhaps, what do I know? But I think perhaps this is the message we need to try and get out is, you know, just start questioning it.
Yeah.
You know, just realize that what you know is true might not be true. That I'm sure, like Facebook and all these media programs have got, they've worked out to the nth, like 10 decimal place of accuracy. Things like how far a truth can spread, right? If somebody says a truth, okay, how far will it spread? How many people will pick up on it, and how many people will then go on from what those other people picked up on? Yeah. And they can sort of work that out. And I'm absolutely certain that they're using, you know, that they have this, they're monitoring this. So they know what's true. They know that hammers works true, for example. And probably every time I say something or anybody else that talks about it, that'll lodge up, and that'll be, they'll know an algorithm. They'll say, well, we don't need to put any more brainwashing in just now because there's not a lot of this problem for us. That this problem is going to affect our plan happening, or vice versa, right? So I'm sure that I'm sure that they're actually working real time on this, because it's all about belief. It's about creating the, you know, there's the truth and there's the truth. One of them's true, right? And one of them is what you believe. And if they can control what you believe, they basically control the world. And it's up to us to realize that our belief is being controlled.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know, when you were talking about Dr. Hammer, I have all these other realizations from time to time where all of a sudden I remember something from the past. I'm like, oh my God, that's why this. Like, so, you know, think of some of the most that we're told are like highly contagious viruses. So when I was 16, I got glandular fever. Well, that's what I was told. And I remember at the time being really sick. And I was told to go and get some blood tests. And I said, what is this actually going to prove? And they said, well, we can see that your white blood count is up. So you're dealing with an infection. And because of the symptoms, we know that it's glandular fever. And so I said, did you actually find glandular fever? And they said, oh, no, we can't. We can't actually find the virus. Like, there isn't a test for that. And I just was like, oh, but they know it's obviously glandular fever. And it's allegedly like the kissing disease. It's super duper contagious. And yet not one member of my family got it at all. It's just me. You know.
You didn't kiss them.
You know, but I mean, you're told. I mean, I'd not even had my first kiss at that point. So, I mean, that was another thing, was where did I get it from then?
Where did you get it from?
Yeah.
I haven't heard of Dr. Hammer, but I'm very pleased to be introduced to it.
It's worth looking at.
You got it because you had gone into healing from a conflict, a conflict which lodged in the part of your brain which controlled the glands in your throat, right? And your psyche would have had some issue to deal with in life, probably at school, or at the local youth club or whatever, right? And it's gone into healing, right? And the glands swell up, and things there are these proteins that appear in the blood. So medicine calls them, your white blood cell counts up, so that's antibodies. Well, you could call them flibbly-jibs, right? They don't have to be called antibodies, they're flibbly-jibs, and they're fun things. But you know, it doesn't mean to say because your antibodies are up that you've got an infection. And I mean, if you look at like somebody who gets tuberculosis, TB, right? if somebody's developing Hammer's work here again, right? Developing an adeno cancer, say in the lungs, okay, from a death fright, that the population of tubercular bacteria is growing in parallel with the tumor. In parallel, but that TB population is doing absolutely nothing. It's just sitting there, tapping its fingers, waiting until the psyche says, right, that's it. I've resolved the issue now. Don't need that cancer anymore. So the TB bacteria then dive in and dissolve that cancer, and you sweat it out. That's what happens. So it's people that get tuberculosis. They've had as much TB in their bloods before they contracted the disease as it did when the disease came out. It was just sitting there latent, ready to be used, right? So that again is what I was saying. We live in nature. Nature's living in us. So if we get an adeno cancer growing in our body, we're going to have a nice big crop of TB bacteria growing in the body as well, ready to remove that cancer when the issue driving it is resolved. You with me? And that's why Hammer was so incredibly successful. I mean, he was like over 90% successful at curing terminally ill cancer patients, when the standard 5-year survival rate figure was like 7% or something. He was like 95%. And it's because he worked it out. Oh, this is a truth. This is not a truth that I believe. This is a truth he came to. He was a doctor. He didn't believe it. He believed in germs, right? So he had to find the truth that lay behind his truth. His was he had a believed truth, but then he discovered a real truth because he had enough brains and integrity to do that. And he's left it for us. And that's how I knew right away that COVID was a scam, because I know COVID cannot exist because no diseases do. But since then, I've learned about common law and lots of other stuff. And we're coming up to our time, I suppose. So I just want to say again, we're in a place of huge potential to learn the important things in life, the really important things in life, not just for us, but for our children and our grandchildren and our future.
May I? Oh, sorry, go on.
No, that's it. That's really it.
What I was going to say is I just want to jump in quickly, because I'm nodding with you and saying because I've heard you talk about German new medicine, but for anyone that knows nothing about German new medicine, they probably won't understand a word of what you're saying, you know, in terms of like why the bacteria might be growing, why this might be. And the first, just like, I'll put in some links to the interviews I've done with Robert where he's explained the premise of German new medicine, which I think is really useful. But I think it's also worth just saying that according to German new medicine, all illness happens because of, is it an accident?
It's a trauma. It's a perceived. It's
a trauma that you are isolated from.
Yeah, it's a perceived trauma. It's something that our biological brain, which is not our conscious mind, it's a thing that's running in our brains all of the time, looking out for us, and it's looking out for danger, and it's being programmed by evolution, and all of these programs are ready in there to be activated if the psyche perceives that we have suddenly entered a place of danger or a moment of danger. So the breast cancer or the bowel cancer or the IBS or the schizophrenia starts, okay, it's a pre-programmed reaction the body has within it that is triggered by the psyche, and it creates a symptom. And I mean, there's much more detail to it than that, but just that understanding, okay, so it's about what I perceive. So what I perceive is precious. I've got to be careful about what I believe and what situations I put myself in which are toxic. Not toxic, chemically toxic, but toxic, emotionally toxic, relationships and such. And when we have a symptom, this is probably the most powerhouse of it. When we have a symptom, we can know what's caused it, and we can then fix that life issue and get better. And that's what Hammer did. He just fixed life issues and people got better. Fixed life issue, people gets better. Didn't matter what the problem was. It was all the same. The symptom could have been anything. Just fix the issue and let the process run its natural course, and at the end of it, you get better.
Well, that explains why holistic medicine works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Have you heard of Yvette Rose, who wrote Metaphysical Anatomy?
No.
I think you'd be very interested in that. She did a lot of research about what different illnesses, what the trauma is behind them, where it stems from. And I've been using that book since 2015 to help get to the nitty gritty of what people have experienced, because so often we just
a good place to go.
Really know.
I would, for me, the place that I always go back to is www.learninggnm.com, and that list in the English language, in fact, it's written in about 12 languages now, that website, that lists all the biological conflicts which are associated with things that we call disease.
Yeah, I go there all the time, Rob.
Yeah, and like, call it COVID, call it asthma, whatever. You can go there and you can work it out what stress has caused the flu or whatever it's being termed at just now. Okay, but it's like a truth that's behind the truth, and that's how, right from the very get-go, I knew that there was no pandemic right away. Just like, oh my God, what's gonna happen there? I thought this will burn out just like bird flu did and all that, but no, this was the big one that they started off. And you've only got to get into the truth through one door. I mean, lots of people get into the truth through like the legal, lawful thing. So I encourage all truthers to once they're behind the veil, right, they can start looking at all of the truths. And obviously, I'm passionate about German or Germanic new medicine, as it's properly called, and Dr. Hammer's work. But I'm also, part of me looks optimistic, because there is a chance that we all could start this ball rolling and get an avalanche of truth going, which is just what humanity needs. It needs nothing more than the truth.
Yeah, and I likewise, Rosanna, I've got quite a few of those books as well with the spiritual underlying causes, and I sometimes cross-reference them a little bit with the GNM work, because everything is linked up. Everything links up in beautiful ways. And what you're saying there, Rob, that really resonates with me. There will be people that work in medicine that have probably had some questions that are coming at learning the truth because things aren't making sense from their perspective. There'll be people in the police force similarly that will be thinking, hang on, that didn't make sense. Like, I've come across different people who have lost people quite suddenly, and been listening to their stories and hearing how things didn't quite make full sense. And slowly, I think, from every different person and their unique situations, this much bigger picture of what our cumulative truth might be is coming out, which is kind of fascinating. And we've got some people here also saying other things. So Squire of the Shies is saying, we agree. They started saying that when you started talking about health, by the way. And then Robin Johnson has said, and she's corrected it, or he's corrected. Is it a he or a she, Robin? He. Sorry, sorry, Robin. He corrects it with if, but he said, if every disease was transmitted via air, the human race would have been wiped out years ago. Yeah. Very, very obvious truth there, really. Because societies that accept everything we are told, society can no longer think for themselves. We're even told what to wear in winter on the news and how to stay cool in the summer. Really? And that's fascinating as well, because if you have a look at some of the news reports this year, and you look at the colors used to tell you the temperatures, on the little weather girl map, weathermen maps, like 25 degrees is now like shocking red. And yet you go back 10 years and you look, it's just green. So they're just changing the signaling all the time. Jay Gell Atkinson is saying, this is brilliant. Only just got here towards the end due to distractions elsewhere, but we'll watch on catch up on YouTube. And these are the links that I've just put in for learning GNM. .com, which is really, really good. When you get there, click on the search function, and like Rob said, you can look up a gazillion different illnesses, and it will talk about the different biological programs that are going on, which is fascinating. So in looking at this question then, which was what is the best possible outcome for humanity, obviously it's an unanswerable question, but one of the things that has come up for all of us is learning maybe about how the body works.
Mm.
Is that something we would all agree on, or what other
Mind,
things?
body, spirit, all three for me.
Yes.
Yeah, I would.
Interconnected.
I would agree, but I would agree. We need to learn how to question. You know, we need to realize that we can have questions, and you know that there's the truth behind the truth, and just to search, to keep looking and be interested. I reckon.
Yeah. Yes. And Robin is also saying, yeah, thinking for ourselves. Loving it. Any final thoughts then?
Well, I'm good with that. I think I'm good with what I've said.
I've got a few questions, but I have to wait for another time.
Ooh. Have you got any that might be another conversation for us?
Yes, definitely, because what you were introducing about Dr. Hammer's work, I mean, I don't know him, so I'm going to have to look that up, and then hopefully next time we can sort of have more of a discussion about it. But I recently did some research about what lack of oxygen does in the body, and so that was one of the questions. I wondered whether his work covers that.
I'm not sure about that. I mean, his work does not cover things like physical injury directly or chemical poisoning, and I mean asphyxiation is a different thing, right? Or low oxygen. So I'm not sure what his thoughts on low oxygen. I'm not aware of. I mean, what I am aware of is that as long as we're alive and not under chemical control, as I put it, our body, everything that goes on in the body is being made that way. Nothing's happening. No part of the body's going awry. You haven't got you don't get an inflammation in the body without a reason behind it. The body's creating that inflammation. So if you've got rheumatoid arthritis and you've got your joints are deforming and you're in pain, right? You'll be told, well, your immune system's attacking the tissue or something, right? But it's not. The brain is doing something to try and fix a life issue for you. It's just understanding all the mechanisms in between allows you to understand what it's doing in the bigger picture. So,
but what about the food, say, for instance, the food that we ingest, if that's really low quality or it's got pesticides in, can that be considered a trauma that then reduces the oxygen levels in the cells?
Not really. As long what Hammer has, if you eat very well, you give the body the best tools to create all these diseases, which are not diseases, they're just processes, biological processes. So you're giving the body the best nutrition to facilitate these processes that have to happen because the brain has to do it, because we've inherited 100 million years of evolution into that skull, and it's going to do what it's going to do. If you eat well, you'll help it. If you eat poorly, it'll struggle. But the poor food does not cause the symptoms of eczema or arthritis or whatever, right? It might, and it doesn't cause that, and you can't stop that by eating well. But
so
if you eat well,
so are you saying by your own interpretation that if we ingest food that has pesticides in it, which are toxic, that is not going to have an impact because it's purely the body can deal with anything, and it's purely related
no, I'm not saying that. That's a poison. So if you have a physical injury or a poisoning, that's out with German new medicine. So if I took a gram of cyanide, it would kill me. It's not an emotional thing, right? It's poisoned me. And likewise with these pesticides that may well even interfere with our reproduction and cause well, we talked about thalidomide today, right? And the children who came up, that's a chemical thing, right? So that's out with it, but not that many diseases are caused like thalidomide was caused, right? Most things like Crohn's disease or arthritis or migraines or constipation or cancer or candida, right? All these things are within what he talks about. And all of these symptoms and many more are part of a biological process, which the brain is the computer, and the psyche is using the brain to facilitate this process. And these symptoms are part of that process. And the whole thing is being done because you've suffered a trauma, and the psyche is trying to proactively solve your life trauma biologically in your body. It's trying to solve your life trauma. And we just look at one small part of it. Oh, my eczema. I've got eczema on my elbow. Oh, outside of my elbow. Is it on the inside of my elbow? No, just the outside. Oh, when you actually go digging, you find it's a separation conflict where you wanted to get somebody away from you. And that's what you use. Now, you find the next person comes in, the eczema is on the inside of the elbow. Oh, what's that? You say, well, what's caused that? Oh, that was a separation conflict where you wanted to hold on to somebody. They got pulled from your arms and they died of cancer, for example, because, so you start to learn the actual mechanisms that cause these symptoms. And these symptoms are not diseases. They are just signs that your psyche is proactive in trying to help you solve your life. And that's the beauty of it, because it gives us so much power to fix ourselves. It puts the power back in our hands. We don't have to go hoping that we get a good doctor or hoping that we get a good dose of chemo this time around, and whatever. You suddenly realize, hold on, I can fix this, or I might need help to fix it, but at least I can start learning this. And it's just amazing. It's amazing, right? It's the best ever. And humanity needs it because it would allow us to become self-responsible. We would realize that we don't need to be fearful of everything the television says to us, and we can realize that everything the television does say to us is a complete lie. And it's not 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it wasn't so much of a lie because we didn't know the truth. Now the truth is known, and it's been put forward in hypotheses that have just vanished because they weren't what wanted to test. But nevertheless, it's out there, and now it's a lie, and you can only see the truth behind the truth. Otherwise, you look at the television, and you think, well, that must be true. There's COVID. But when you know about disease and Hammer's work, you realize, oh no, there cannot be COVID. So that truth that's given to me through the television is not a truth. Who's behind that? You can start to go into who's. You can start to see the bigger picture of who's doing what. And
I'm totally with you there. Yeah, and the word is in the name, right? Television programming.
Yeah, tell lie. Tell lie.
Right? It's never opaque. It's never hidden. It's like let's show the truth, but get them to disbelieve the truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just, if I may, as a sort of an example of how German New Medicine helped me, or Germanic New Medicine helped me, and it was really through my first conversation with Rob. He was talking about the different biological programs that we go through, and I said, okay, well, let's use me as an example, because I've had lots of examples of urine infections. It was something I've had loads, and I've been in hospital twice with pyelonephritis, like kidney infection. I had low grade urine infections pretty much all the way through from about 16 up pretty much and through until I chatted with Rob. So it's like a good 20 years. And during that time, I was back and forth to the doctors, and they would test me, and sometimes they would find white blood cells, sometimes they wouldn't. And of course, that was their marker to say, oh, yes, this is going on. And sometimes they would say, oh, well, there we found some E. coli, which has obviously come I think they say, oh, well, sometimes a girl's ureter is so close to the anus that they get some E. coli, in their wiping and stuff like that. There's all these kinds of ideas. And they say, you've got this E. coli, that's what's caused it. And there's been other times when they've said, oh, no, there's a different type of bacteria. And so, but there was never any consistency. So sometimes there would be bacteria that would show up, and sometimes they wouldn't. And when there wasn't any bacteria, they'd say, well, you haven't got cystitis. But they'd still give me antibiotics. And at one point, they just said, well, there's lots of women like you right now. And our best solution is just to give you a low-grade antibiotic, and that will just cure you, which I just instinctively thought, no, I'm not going to do that. Anyway, when I was talking to Robert about like urine infections, he said, well, biologically, and you might want to stop me if I get it wrong, Rob, but he said, well, in nature, when people start to feel like they don't have their territory. It's like we have pissing contests, don't we? Like if you think of other mammals, like dogs, cats, foxes, whatever, they mark their territory with urine. And if you feel like somebody's getting in your space and you don't have enough space, there's a program that we use, and we, like, if we're feeling threatened, we'll try and pee more. And like, we don't know that as grown-up humans because we just think we're really civilized. But if you think about it, we're living and working in these sort of interconnected situations. It kind of started actually when I got too big for living at home with my parents. And so it really flared up, in alignment with how much I was being told what to do, and me thinking, actually, I'm fine. I need my own space. And then when I tracked all these major bouts of pyelonephritis or cystitis, it was always when I was living in close proximity to people that I wasn't really comfortable with, where I felt like my own rights were being impinged upon. And then it just so happened that there was this very big situation going on when I was talking to Robert. And so it came back up once I realized that it was my own body running a biological pissing contest, so that I felt like I was marking my territory, and that I'd resolved it. And so my body was now doing the clear up to kind of put everything back right, so I couldn't pee as, like, I think how it's explained is that when you need to pee more, your body makes some adaptations, like some really tiny cellular ones, so you can spray more. And then
entirely true.
Once you resolve that, then your body gets rid of all the extra cells.
It's actually the body actually what happens is, when the conflict is active, when you're in the situation where you're uncomfortable and you need to mark your territory, the lining of your urethra and ureters and the bladder itself becomes ulcerated to widen it, to make yourself pee more, to dribble, to mark your territory. But when you feel, your psyche feels you've reestablished a little bit of territory now, all that has to be rebuilt. So it comes with a wave of inflammation and pain. So you're actually trying to, when you go to the doctor to take antibiotics, you're actually trying to heal a symptom of healing. Because you've resolved your territorial marking conflict, and now your body's got to heal itself. And to do that, as it does with all bacteria, they always work in the healing phase of a conflict. So killing bacteria is crazy. It's like, that's silly to do that, because they're only trying to fix your body because you've now resolved the conflict. So you're absolutely but you nailed it bang on, Louisa.
Well, there's another part, because for anyone that has had lots of urine infections, you'll also probably know it comes on after you've made love. And so when you go to the doctors, they often say, oh, well, it's honeymoon
disease.
It's honeymoon disease. You've made love, you've got it from being too active in your lovemaking or something like that. You've got an infection. But if your territory dispute is resolved because you've just made love, and all of a sudden you don't feel like you're in conflict and you feel really safe, which is what Dr. Hammer is saying. It's like, once you feel safe, your body then heals itself. And so, like, you don't see it until you experience it. And all I can say is, since I've had that knowledge, it cleared up without any antibiotics. And it was the worst one I've ever had. It was like knowing what Dr. Hammer said. And I thought, oh my God, there might be something in it. And I've not had a urine infection since. And the other thing that I noticed when I was reading about it, we're the only creatures that have secondary cancers. So other creatures might have cancers, but humans are the only ones that get secondary cancers. And according to German New Medicine, if you have a shock that you feel isolated from, and you're not able to feel supported, you can't get rid of that trauma, that could be one of the causes. But of course, no other animal is going to get shocked, because no other animal knows it has cancer. But when a human is told you've got cancer, it may well, the shock of that could cause a secondary
cancer. Yeah, I mean, Dr. Hammer reckoned that most lung cancers were caused as a result of the shock of diagnosis, because because the conflict behind a adenocarcinoma of the lung alveoli is a death fright, right? Now,
Yeah.
you can't give a death fright to your dog. You can't say, "Oh, dog, you got a big lump of cancer. You know, you're getting old now, like dogs do. They get like 16 years old. They get big lumps of cancer growing on them because the psyche is trying to do something. But the dog's not worried about that cancer that's growing. I saw a dog recently with a lump of its ear. It sort of started to grow and grow, right? But the dog's really old. It's not going to live that much longer. But the dog's not worried about this big lump of growth on its ear. So that dog will not get frightened and not have a death fright because it's got cancer. But we do, and we're being almost like, well, we're being groomed to be that way because, well, cancer's dangerous. Whereas Hammer said, no, it's not that dangerous at all. It just needs to be managed properly. You need to fix your life. In fact, what he also discovered was that possibly most cancers are actually signs of healing. So all bone cancers, it's a sign that the person's in healing. All cancer of the blood, it's a sign of healing. Skin cancer, it's a healing thing. That's what his discoveries were. So even his work tells us that half of cancers are actually signs of healing, and the ones that are not signs of healing, they're just signs that your body's trying to deal with a life issue. So find the life issue, deal with it, and then deal with the biological consequences of basically your ignorance up until you've dealt with the problem, right? You know, you didn't realize what was happening. You've got bowel cancer. Oh my God, you're worried about the bowel cancer. That's caused your lung cancer.
Does he cover? I'm just interested. Does he cover the placebo and the nocebo effect?
Yeah, it's got nothing. Yeah, well, what it does tell us is that it's all photographable in the brain. You can photograph it real time in the brain happening. You can photograph a person's brain and you can say that person has got an active bowel cancer, and they will have an indigestible anger issue in their lives. You can get a brain scan 2 weeks later after the person's fixed it, and you can say, oh, that person had an adeno cancer of the bowel. They're now in healing. They're going to be very tired and sweating every night. And you don't need to meet the person. You just look at the brain scan. It's that powerful and that good. And that's why the medical industry didn't have an answer for that, and they realized, oh my God, this is going to really rattle the boat here. So we're just going to make it disappear. And that's where I've come up with this sort of theory that they've got these algorithms which can stop the truth. You know, they can stop truth spreading. Because when I first got into this, I thought, oh, everyone's going to go, yay, let's get this. Everyone's going to want to know this. But people don't. People just go, nah. Or they don't. They just go, oh, yeah, and watch the football or something. You know, things don't seem to. I thought it would spread like wildfire, and it doesn't. It's a slow process. Change is slow, I think. Too slow. But
one thing I've noticed is people get very attached to their diagnosis, and they sometimes wear it like a badge of honor. And so if you're trying to, even if you're trying to reassure somebody that maybe what they think they've got isn't, my mom had cancer like 25 years ago, and she had a breast. I hope she doesn't mind. I mean, I think people know that she's never hidden that she had breast cancer, and she had a breast removed, she had chemo, she had radiotherapy, and she was in something called the One-Off Club with loads of other women that had a breast removed. And my mum was she, like you, Rosanna, she was interested in reading up about different things and what might have caused it. And so she was open to having different types of counselling, and also having like she's taken vitamins and minerals and done all she can to support herself. But she was more open-minded. And out of all the women that she had cancer with, within 4 years, they'd all died. She was the only one in the One-Off Club. She was literally a one-off in the One-Off Club. And the whole shock of that, I think, you know, she got a lot of support. We all supported her a lot, which probably helped her to recover. But even now, so many years later, if anything happens, she thinks it's coming back straight away. And like when I had glandular fever, which lingered, or whatever was going on lingered for a long time. And then I was diagnosed with ME. I became very attached. I was sent to ME groups, you know, and I actually recovered from it. I don't exactly know how I did it. And probably if I spoke to Rob, he'd be able to explain what happened. But out of the people that I was in the group with ME over, the persuasion is so strong. And so when I said, oh yeah, I was diagnosed with ME and I've recovered from it, people said, well, you didn't really have it then.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I went to the doctors several times and they signed me up for a special ME group out of Wareham Hospital, where they were studying, they were doing drug trials, and where there was this like regular meeting. But the programming about what we had was so strong. And I just think a lot of people get really, like, they think of themselves as survivors of something. And I don't want to take that away if that's what somebody identifies with. But I think we're so identified by our symptoms now and the drugs we take that it seems heretic that we might just say, I wonder if that actually is true. I can see we've got a comment here actually. What interminable reality denial from someone who has absolutely no qualification aside from snake oil salesmanship of the most perfidious nature purely for financial gain. And that may well be about Dr. Hammer. He got a lot of, like, when you know, when people hear about it, some people go and they check him out and then find that he was locked up and this, that, and the other, and he was ruined. And then there are people who like spoke about ESIAC as a cure for things, who were then, you know, like anytime someone comes along to maybe unlock what might be going on or to look at it differently, they get routinely but which may also be true.
As well, if people put, we're all guilty. I'm as guilty, I suppose, as everyone, right? If we put a lot of belief and faith in things, and then to suddenly realize that that's not true at all, and it was really counterproductive, that can be too much for maybe it's our pride, or we don't want to appear to being stupid or something, but it's hard to take when reality comes knocking and it's completely different than what you believed. You're probably just not going to even see it. You just look through it and not realize it's there. It's so different than what you're expecting to see.
Yeah.
Well, that's the same with health.
Sorry.
No,
go on.
Sorry.
Going back to what you were saying, Louisa, about what would the world look like in terms of this agenda, right? One of the things that I perceive is going on is something that I call contrived opposition.
Yes.
So when something, I mean, it's not me who coined it, but I'm going to use that phrase. So, you know, whenever someone like Dr. Hammer comes out, there's always a contrived opposition that starts, you know, casting aspersions and breaking them down. And that, for me, is one of the principal ways that they get to suppress information.
I completely agree. Couldn't agree more. That's so true.
Then they get us to be their soldiers, where our neighbours, our friends start nitpicking at us and attacking us for believing this stuff. And they get us controlling each other.
Divide and conquer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't confess to know anything. Like, the more I learn about stuff, the more I'm open to being wrong, actually. But what I really kind of get excited about is the fact that I might get closer to what the truth is. And I'm pretty sure that whatever is told to me, like by a gazillion different outlets from different industries and stuff, the more I actually smell a rat, because I just don't think things are that harmonious. Robin Johnson is saying a lot of this resonates with videos from Dolores Cannon. Yeah, you know what? I think a lot of, you know, when you look at lots of different thought and stuff, there are correlations all along, and maybe there will be a moment in time where all of that fits together as well. And then Carl is just saying, and we are going to have to bring this to an end now, but Carl is saying, how? So you are just one banned from YouTube bingo with ESIAC. So yes, I've probably, you know, just got another, you know, I mentioned Dr. Thomas Cowan. We've spoken about German new medicine. We've spoken about cancer. Is it really what we've been told it is? And now ESIAC. Who knows if we'll be even doing the show tomorrow? It was fun while it lasted, and I can download it and put it on Rumble anyway. So, anyway, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been fascinating. And Owen is saying, I know that right now. More people are talking about false narratives. This is a positive move forward. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Owen. Thanks for sticking around. All right. Final last words for today. Anything?
Ladies first.
Oh God. Well, thank you for introducing me to Dr. Hammer. I shall be researching that thoroughly. I highly recommend to anyone looking for another resource that sounds very similar is Yvette Rose's Metaphysical Anatomy, which details a whole load of diseases. You can literally look up the disease and find so much, both medical and spiritual. So that's another amazing resource to look at. And yeah, thanks for having me on again. I've loved it as usual. My mind feels like it's expanded, and I love to meet people who are not like following the whole Agenda 30 narrative.
Yeah,
you're done.
Well, do you know what I mean? I would say anyone that is out there looking to help and heal and open minds and open hearts and things is like getting a thumbs up in my book. And like my bookshelf is full of different stuff on healing and whatnot. There's a lot of good stuff out there. Rob, your final thoughts for today?
My final thoughts are that there is a huge opportunity for people. It's right. It's like the garden is ripe with opportunities from all directions to show that the truth is not what you see given to you, but it's not far behind. It's not far behind what we're given. It's not too hard to look for the truth, and that Germanic New Medicine is one way in which we can find a truth about ourselves and disease. But it's such an opportunity as well to realize, well, I've been wrong and I can change, to realize what we are within what's happening. How it's a dynamic thing. We don't have to be, well, I'm one of these and you're one of them. You're a truther and I'm a sensible person or something. It's like we can start to be. You can start to look and dance with life, and look at different options and question them and actually become involved in the thinking about what you think about it. Not just thinking what you've been told to think about it, but you can actually become involved in what you do think about it by questioning it.
Yeah.
And I think that's it's a great time to be in, and it's exciting, worrying, but exciting.
What an adventure. Well, thank you both for joining us. We've had a few people say thank you, and Robin Johnson's also said thank you. Excellent show. So thank you for joining us wherever you've joined us from in the world. Thank you for stopping by. Thanks for all your comments, your love, and also your challenges too. I love all of that. And hopefully we'll all connect real soon. Lots of love. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.